Gordon, graduate student at Southwestern College in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
And I'm Ginna Clark, Human Sexuality Certificate Director at Southwestern College.
Thanks so much for joining us to talk about the program. I wanted to start by just asking you if you could tell us about the approach that a New Earth Institute in Southwestern College has to human sexuality.
The program is a holistic one, so we kind of focus on human sexuality from a variety of perspectives: emotional, physical, spiritual, mental. And we've tried to build a program that addresses as best we can in 6 classes a kind of focus on lots of different things underneath the umbrella of human sexuality.
Sounds really good. It sounds like a really unique program.
Yeah, I think it is a unique program. You know, it's kind of housed at Southwestern College, which has a transformational and experiential focus. And so the certificate itself is also quite experiential, meaning that not only do students get exposed to different ways of thinking about working with sexual issues in psychotherapy or in art therapy, they also have opportunities for working on their own personal issues related to sexuality. And that feels like a unique feature of the program as well.
Yeah, and it adds a lot to the curriculum at Southwestern College.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that this is a program that students have been asking for a long time, and something that Southwestern recognized as a kind of curricula area that is really kind of missing from a lot of graduate education in counseling and art therapy and clinical psychology. And in my mind, it makes the certificate program really unique in that there aren't a lot of programs focused on this area. And of course, we all know as therapists that it's a really important area for clients who come to see us, clients seeking our help. So I feel like the program really gives people a kind of language and exposure to thinking about sexuality, and thinking about sexuality in ways that are safe and in ways that clinicians at Southwestern can kind of borrow to, work with people that come to see them in agencies or in private offices. So.
Yeah, I'm sure sexuality is a huge part of therapy for so many people. It makes sense that a counselor would be trained in the area of human sexuality.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are some of the struggles or issues that you work with, or that you train people on, or that you encounter in this subject area?
Let's see. Well, the program itself really feels like kind of choosing from a kind of a big buffet of options, because there are 3 core courses, but there are I think there are 9 additional weekend courses that people can choose from, and they can really create the program that they want the program
I love that.
to be.
Yeah, it's really flexible.
Yeah, it feels like it's really flexible. So the core courses are really designed to kind of help orient a student or a therapist, whoever's taking the course, to their own attitudes about sexuality. A lot of things don't necessarily get articulated. We don't often have a lot of opportunity for talking about sex, for having meaningful conversations about sexuality in our family of origin, later in our peer groups. And so the sexual attitudes class, which is one of the core classes, really tries to give people opportunities to have conversations and to kind of bump up against areas of discomfort that they may not know they have. Because most of us as therapists go into the field wanting to do the best we can to help people, and we don't often know our blind spots. And so with sexuality specifically, there are often blind spots that we need to kind of spend some time with, think about, wrestle with. And so that class really gives people an opportunity to do that. The other 2 core classes are clinical skills classes, and they're really designed to give give participants tools for working with people. The first clinical skills class is about thinking and theorizing. How do we think about sexual issues or sexual problems, and think about them in non-pathologizing ways, in sex-positive ways.
What are some of those issues that are encountered in this subject matter or this line of therapy?
So a lot of the struggles that I see kind of in the field in general come from not having meaningful conversations. I think I talked about that a little earlier. We don't have safe, open places to talk about sexuality, and so there's often a lot about our own sexualities that we don't know. So I think that when it comes to thinking about and working with sexual issues in therapy, a lot of therapists are often uncomfortable and kind of bump up against not knowing what to say, not wanting to be seductive or inappropriate. How do you find the right language for talking about sexuality? How do you talk about a sexuality or sexualities that are different than your own, that you may be unfamiliar with? Or that you maybe kind of grew up with kind of biases or misconceptions about. So I think in turn what it does, it sort of sets up a kind of nervousness or a panic in the therapist. And we end up not having those conversations, or our own nervousness or discomfort gets translated and picked up by our clients, who then stop talking. Right? Stop talking about issues that are really important and that need to find space in counseling or therapy.
So in that sexual attitudes class, you kind of approach probably some of those areas where there are more blind spots, where people would tend to pathologize sexual issues.
Yeah, exactly. That class is really designed to help people have a safe opportunity to kind of bump up against some discomfort when they're not sitting across from a client.
Okay.
And of course, that doesn't mean that doesn't happen too, but hopefully the idea in the program is the more opportunity you have for having conversations, for thinking about and working with your own sexuality, the more comfortable you are in hearing other people talk about issues they may be having. Yeah.
Well, what are some of the other classes?
So, the Sexual Attitudes is one of the core courses, and then there are the 2 clinical skills courses, which are really kind of more designed to be a little more heavy-hitting in terms of clinical skills. Once you have kind of thought about and found some of your areas of strength, comfort, discomfort, you know something about the attitudes that you bring to a therapeutic encounter, then what? How do you think about the development of sexual issues or problems? And how do you think about their treatment, essentially? Or how do you think about healing them? So the first clinical skills class is really kind of designed to help people think about therapeutic issues and kind of build what we might call kind of a case formulation. How do we sort of explain or think about the origin of some of these issues, and then what do we do from there? It also is a clinical skills class designed to kind of orient people to lots of different possibilities. What might walk through the door that's related to sexuality that you didn't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a survey course. In that course, we talk about how to help people cope with the immediacy of things like sexual assault, or how to help people heal from the long-term effects of sexual abuse, how to think about sexual compulsivity or sexual acting out, how to think about or sit with people who are in polyamorous relationships or non-monogamous relationships, and help people kind of cope with the challenges that come with juggling lots of different relationships in a non-pathologizing way, right?
Cool,
Yeah.
It's really interesting, I'm sure. I'm sure you talk about all sorts of interesting things in some of those classes.
Absolutely, and do kind of interesting things in those classes
I
too,
bet.
because it's an experiential program. There's a lot of doing in those classes as well. In fact, last year in the clinical skills 1 class, people were asked to use the expressive arts, poetry, music, written word, dance, movement, and kind of speak to or perform something about what they know of their erotic blueprint, which is an idea that comes from Esther Perel, who wrote Mating in Captivity, which is a great, great book for anybody who's ever been or ever wants to be or is in relationship. It's a great book to read. And I wanted to mention the second clinical skills class too, because it's essentially a models class where different therapists who specialize in different issues come and present their model for working with people and talk about sort of experiential ways of engaging clients. So in this last class, it was just an incredible class. I mean, we had a therapist from Utah who talked about working with people who are part of the LDS community. How do you respect someone's religiosity and rules around religion, and also work with them to sort of empower them to have the kind of relationship to their sexual selves that they want to have. There was an art therapist from Washington, D.C., who came and talked about working with people in the kink and poly communities. And she talked about what every mental health professional needs to know about working with BDSM. So she introduced us to terminology and ways of thinking about those relationships, and ways of thinking about things and again, a non-pathologizing way.
Go. You can talk about all the classes you want. There are a lot, and they're all really interesting.
They're all really interesting, and I think I feel really lucky to be in this position because I have gotten to meet some incredible people in the field. And I will say this about the intersection of human sexuality and psychology, it's that people are so willing to give of their time and to really mentor students. It has not been hard at all to find faculty in this program. People have just said yes enthusiastically. And there are people who've published, and there are people who are working all over the country and lecturing all over the country. So we have a really strong, really diverse faculty that represent, I think, kind of multiple multiple communities. There's also a lot of debate in the field right now. And we have people on faculty who are on both sides of the fence on lots of different issues. And that feels important to me too, as a director of the program, to have diverse opinions represented in the curriculum. Yeah.
And it's not just students or graduate students at Southwestern College who take these classes. Other members of the community, other professionals, and just interested community members are welcome to take the courses.
Absolutely. In fact, this semester we had a woman who is a retired therapist who's taking the course because she's writing fiction and she wants to kind of brush up in the area of sexuality. And in courses past, we have a lot of therapists from the community who are interested in this particular area, who maybe wherever they went to school or whenever they were at Southwestern didn't get this kind of exposure and want it. And I think it makes for a rich classroom experience because there's so many people from the community as well as students who have all sorts of different experience speaking about and kind of wrestling with these kind of ideas and concepts together.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to talk about some of the logistical aspects of either applying for the program or what one can do with the certificate? Is there anything beyond just having the the 6-credit certificate, or I guess it's 6 classes times 3 credits at
Right.
18 credits. Yeah.
Right.
But,
Right.
Anything you
Well,
want to speak about?
The requirements are essentially those 3 core courses and then 3 additional classes. And usually during the academic year, we offer a couple of different weekend options. Like the erotic intelligence and pleasure literacy class was offered this summer. It was a great class, and we actually took a field trip to a sex-positive feminist-run sex shop and had a kind of tutorial there in the shop about what every mental health professional needs to know about sex toys. It was a great class. So there's lots of weekend options, again, that people can pull from as possibilities to kind of round out the certificate program. You can take classes without having to formally apply to be in the certificate program. So you can get kind of a sample or a taste of what the program is like, by taking a course here or there. And then I think it's my understanding that you can apply for the program by just contacting the registrar. There's a simple form to fill out. Let's see. Logistics. I did want to mention this, that the courses were designed with ASECT requirements in mind. And ASECT is the American Association of, let's see if I can do it, Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. And they are the governing body that determines the criteria for a person to become a sex therapist or a sexuality counselor or a sex educator. And so all of our courses meet the requirements that they set forth for the human sexuality education component and what they call a clinical sexology component. So while the 6 courses graduates you from the certificate program, people can also stay on and complete the education requirements for ASECT if they want to become a sex therapist. That's true for therapists in the community too. If they want to further specialize after working for a couple of years, they can do all their education requirements through the New Earth Institute.
Is it through the fulfilling all 9 of the courses?
Yeah, that's how it works
bad at
out.
all.
No, it's really not.
Cool.
Yeah.
Deb, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Just I hope if people are interested, they'll feel free to give it a try. Sometimes people are kind of intimidated by the subject matter, but also curious. And I can say that people have really had some transformative experiences. I know I have as the director. So I would encourage people to give it a try, give a class or 2 a try, because there's a lot of safety and a lot of personal growth, I think, to be found in the coursework. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today and talking about the program.